Justified, my mama cried. Black people died when the other man lied.
There should be an acknowledgement about the situation, or even an apology or some kind of reparations for the generations that followed, or that's very connected to the riots of the Black Wall Street community. And not so much for the money or for the prestige of like, yeah, we got over, or yeah, it's been acknowledged. It's more so just out of respect and understanding that this was a community that didn't ask for this. This was a community that didn't, go out and be like, F the other man and this, that, and the third. They went out about their own business. They went out to provide for their communities in their own area, just like any other set or group of people that's happening now. And for something so horrific to happen and not be acknowledged by the government, especially with the scores of people that were killed and the families that were all shattered, for the government not to adhere and at least talk to leaders in the community and be like, hey, the Katrina thing is going on. While we're on Katrina, you know what? There were other things that we messed up on. That would actually give people the kind of like, hey, wait a minute, the government does care. The government, they're starting to understand like, these things have happened, and we're shining light in those dark corners that people have been, dismissing for years.
The U.S. government needs to acknowledge the fact that Black Wall Street existed. They need to acknowledge the fact that African American people such a long time ago had the know-how, and they took the initiative to do their own thing without help from the government and all that, even though they were paying their taxes back then too. So the government knows, because these businesses, they had to pay taxes, or the government would have blew it up. So it's definitely recorded somewhere. I bet you probably can't Google that though. You can't Google that like you can Google everything else. You can Google how to make a bomb. You can Google how to become a pedophile. You can Google how to become a terrorist, but you can't Google the fact that these people in Greenwood, Oklahoma paid their taxes. So there needs to be, matter of fact, it needs to be a holiday. Black Wall Street Day, whether it's a parade or whatever, just some type of acknowledgement from the United States government.
I definitely think that the government should acknowledge Black Wall Street and what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Are they going to acknowledge it? I'm not so sure about that. Like, I'm not holding my breath. I think that's what we do well in hip hop, whether it's media, whether it's in our music. I think that it's our job to educate our communities, our job to, bring these issues to the forefront.
Sometimes an acknowledgement, I don't need a check. I do need you to acknowledge that these things happen, just so we can go. Let's not fool ourselves. These things did exist. They did happen once upon a time. There was serious injustice, but I think if the government starts to acknowledge things like that, they'll have to start acknowledging so many other things, so many other. They'll have to acknowledge the inequity and so many other things. I think it would never happen. I don't know if it would, change how I slept at night. But sometimes it is good to hear, like, you know what? I was wrong on that one. My bad.
Absolutely should acknowledge this publicly, because I feel like a lot of people aren't aware, especially in this generation, the generation of access to excess. That I feel like they either aren't aware or they don't really care about from where they came. Our history is so important, and even if it's just a public acknowledgement where all television stops for a couple of hours, where we have our government officials on, President Bush or whoever, talking about this very important time in history. I think that, that would be key. I mean, if we talk about reparations, then it's going to be about more than just public acknowledgement. But I think for the most part, yes, I think it should be in the history books. I think it should be used as a tool to encourage young black students. Like, here's a generation of people who literally came from nothing, absolutely nothing, and they made something out of nothing.
It's like getting the American government to acknowledge slavery and the atrocity perpetrated on Americans. We got close to it during the Clinton administration, where there was this international movement towards apologizing for the sins of the past.
Seems things ain't changed since slavery days. Man, I still feel whipped and chained. Broken, abused, bloodied, bruised, and all my scars still remain. No, I ain't gonna put that all on you. I do share in part the blame. Some of the things I do and the eyes I see through have joined in the cause of my pain. So you don't have to tell me that I'm hunted. I know it, and the shit gets thicker. Cause over one shoulder I watch for white sheets, and over the other the underprivileged black man behind the trigger. See, I never felt the whip slash. I never been a sharecropper nor cotton picker. And outwardly, to my face, no white man has ever called me nigger. Though I was raised in a place where I fight to escape every day like a living hostage. It's an experiment on how long before I kill myself in this bitch, and that's why they call it the projects. And if the president spent one night in my residence listening to those hungry children cry, he'd see what takes precedent. He'd hear how they howl when their stomachs growl and no food is all that's relevant. Then as he stands in front of a judge, he could not use that as evidence. So he'll be made victim of a system that forced him to poverty and then held him there with their prejudice. See, if he suffered from the lack of knowledge and a few centuries of neglect, in this country he'd feel like a foster child that's been adopted just for the check. And there's something that bothers me very deeply about this little known fact, and it's the first to die for that flag we hold high, most don't even know was a black man. But we'll spend billions on searching the galaxy. See, I truly believe that's unfair, because that's money better spent on the intelligent life forms that we cannot find right here. Then he asked me to be all I could be and grow angry when I'm honest. No, I cannot fight for the red, blue, and white until Bin Laden knocked down something in the projects. And when it comes to these inequalities, I could never say enough. So I end, if this is the American dream, before you leave, please, wake me up, wake me up, wake me up.